Rise and shine, Mr. Freeman. Rise and shine. Not that I wish to imply you have been sleeping on the job. No one is more deserving of a rest, and all the effort in the world would have gone to waste until, well, the right man in the wrong place can make all the difference in the world. So wake up, Mr. Freeman. Wake up and smell the ashes.
Mr. Freeman. What a guy. Setting off for just another day working at Black Mesa, minding his own business, but moments later, thanks to a stray experiment error, alien dimensions, hazard suits, and a trusty crowbar, he is the world's saviour, nay, PC and Valve saviour. Silent but deadly is the key. Valve created a groundbreaking masterpiece in Half-Life that they managed to improve on and innovate even more in its sequel and its custom engine. Now, it's maybe hard to imagine now looking at the low texture quality, lack of normal maps or bump maps as they were known in many places, and simple UV blends and low triangle count models, but in 2004 this was the bomb and needed a high-end PC to run it at any respectable lick. If you wanted to push the game as intended, you'd be sporting an Intel Pentium 4 or AMD K8 range, which I had both, but my main was the Athlon 64FX. With its unlocked power, it was fully backwards compatible with 32-bit titles. Pretty good job really, as it took a great many years for them to really hit hard, and games took even longer to move away from 32-bit XEs. Now, the AM2 socket had a good lifespan and was always the best option for a board to allow a good range of the powerful and much cheaper AMD chips. And pound for pound, the Athlon chip was easily the best pick for gamers. Something I know firsthand from both the chip itself and the board cost. How long ago does it seem now compared to Intel's current dominance? But this is not a trip down PC memory lane, and as great as the competition was back then, something I'm keen and hopeful will return this year with Horizon, it was also when Valve excelled themselves with Gordon Freeman's second game that has become an internet meme ever since. Something that I have a secret to share at the end of this very video. Possibly. We have had some truly defining titles across generations and platforms, and Half-Life was possibly the first title to merge character-driven narrative completely in-game with no control-removed cutscenes. The hero was voiceless but anything but useless. Visually, it was very competent when it hit PC in 1998, and as ex-Microsoft staffers Mike Harrington and one Gabe Newell launched their own company, Valve, with this very title. Now powered by the Quake engine, it was a pioneering title, and although heavily modified, it founded the building blocks for its eventual sequel Source engine, which incorporated again modified Havoc physics, but raised the bar in real-time rendering and put PC truly on the map, along with starting a little thing called Steam that went on to have minor success over the PC landscape. Oh yeah, and also a small multiplayer PC title in Counter-Strike 2 that you may have heard of, possibly. Now, at the time, I was shocked to have this disc that had a key inside and a client that I needed to install to allow me to play a game. It was met with much opposition and, unlike as it turned out, was given much less than Half-Life itself before it would end. But that was a premature declaration to say the least. A very disc I still own today, but it's little more than a bookend, or more likely a coaster now, along with many of my PC titles, sadly. Now, what was never in question was just how impressive the new game and engine was, delivering realistic facial animations to express emotion, natural movement from its cast, and much better voice acting that carried the story and characters as you smelled the ashes.
My goodness, Gordon Freeman. It really is you, isn't it?
I found him wandering around outside. Bit of a troublemaker, isn't he?
We owe a great deal to Dr. Freeman, even if trouble does tend to follow in his wake.
From the 6-year-old first title, it was a revelation in all areas. It truly defined the genre and pushed forward on level design, physics, narrative, gameplay loops, and spawned its own mod tool, game, and even a puzzler that nicely brings us onto the point of this video. Set aside my brief retrospective intro for a title that amazed, impressed, influenced, and absorbed myself and many, I am sure, at the time. It also hit a year before the console we can see on screen was released. But this, and many of the other titles in Episode 1 and 2, along with Portal and Team Fortress 2, all came wrapped up in a single package released in 2007 for PC, PS3 and Xbox 360, containing the whole damn package. Well, almost. The 360 release was a great port indeed from the PC original, and although maxed out on PC now is very simple, Valve handled it themselves and it really stands tall against the PC bigger brother. Aside the obvious sacrifice of the potential 60 on PC down to 30 on the console, it really was a very commendable port, with only minor nips and tucks to things like specular tones in the textures, and also the HDR bloom was slightly less accurate, but overall it's the same experience at half the frame rate. That's pretty much the biggest difference between the two. Running at a fully native 1280 by 720p with VSync fully engaged, it never tears. And although it lacks any anti-aliasing with the PC's option of X times MSA sampling not present here, it does help deliver a clean display if jagged across all geometry. It was also one of the first titles to incorporate HDR corrected lighting with its Lost Coast tech demo, which later had some elements retrofitted into the title. The 360 was capable of this from the get-go. Now, something we all take for granted now, but adjusting the gamma for light bloom was a big deal and really added to the game's visual punch as you played. Yes, it can show signs of clipping, but this tone-mapped correction for the human eye was another of the title's revelations in play. Now, animation is still very smooth, and even though the title is merely 30Hz on the 360, it does feel smooth and fluid on the whole. PC can hit 60 now easily, but it was not such an easy feat back then at similar resolutions as you see here, unless you sported said CPUs and a Radeon X800 or maybe the weaker GeForce 6800 Ultra. Not cheap, but still an option. But make no mistake, this was a bleeding edge title in every sense of the word, using pixel shader effects galore, planar reflections and even more. Now, the base 360 does well holding on to an average 30, but like many PC engines at the time, it struggles with an even cadence of them second to second. Yes, frame pacing is not a modern day issue, but very much rooted in the shift to 3D from 2D. Something I covered in detail with my last retrospective on Virtua Racing. Now here the console lurps between a 16 and 33 millisecond delivery that can leave you with a jerky presentation at times. It can also dip below this target occasionally, but rarely lower than 50 millisecond spikes, aside the long hangs for sector loading and saves that can also affect the PC equally. This was a vast area and map to explore, and as such had to divide it into 2D grid sections to allow them to be streamed into RAM as you hit the sector points. Slower on the 360 due to this coming from the disk rather than the guaranteed hard drive. Now, other delays can also arise from the physics heavy simulation in the world, as precariously placed explosive canisters can be triggered for collapsing bridges or group kills, creating a force field of blast radius that can injure yourself, push, break objects and more. This realistic gravity and organic construction also seeped into the puzzles, with seesaw areas, box stacking or the famous gravity gun all getting their fair share of screen time. Now, thanks to the joys of one of Microsoft's biggest treasures in BC, something I've said way back when it all started and still feel is coming to PC very soon, we can all re-enjoy the title on our Xbox Ones. But does it come at a cost, you may ask? Now, as you can see on this screen, it's pretty much a near identical port and performance, right down to the gamma output, resolution, effects and its frame rate, showing that not all titles, at least I feel anyway, get the same case as others and may not even need them. As this is so close, its metric curve to the base model, in like-for-like tests as you can see on screen, it's nigh on identical, bar less than 0.01%. Now that is impressive and all falls well within margin of error and then some. Now some may bemoan that we do not get some impressive boost to performance, and unlike my last title in Bioshock Infinite, this does not have an unlocked option to test the headroom afforded within the Big M's emulated VM, but it is still far from a travesty. Running all titles including the secret hidden third extra episode, yeah I know, sorry about that, some of us are still sore. Maybe one day though. I mean, look, we got Shenmue 3 and The Last Guardian, so anything's possible, right? Okay, moving on. I don't need to dwell here more on the difference at all, as they are for all intents and purposes identical, and this is another win in my book. But Half-Life 2 is not alone, with Portal and even online multiplayer action in Team Fortress 2, all packaged and near carbon copies of the base 360 release. Indeed, I was shocked at how many games I could choose from in Team Fortress 2, and again, although capped at 30, Valve's talented animation team, along with a camera-based pixel object blur, it is very smooth in play, but like all games in the pack, still suffers from pacing issues on the 360, and here again on the Xbox One, but these are no worse than before, and certainly do not distract from the enjoyment to be had here. And that pretty much brings us to the end of another backwards compatibility analysis, and one more in the growing list of titles that more than deserve some attention on the Microsoft white or black box. and something I am sure will be enhanced even further with the Scorpio later this year. Now, as always, if you enjoyed this or any of my other content, then please support the channel and the website by sharing and subscribing, and certainly liking if you did below. If you didn't, then hit the dislike button, but please tell me what you didn't like. Give me all your thoughts and feedback. I really like to hear what you guys and girls have to say, and it helps dictate and push my channel and the videos that I put up, so I try to create content that you want to watch and are interested in. Anyway, this is another win from Microsoft, and what a title to enjoy. You guys and girls take care, play hard, game fast, and I'll see you on the next one.
Hold on!